Good afternoon. I am calling to order the Panama City Commission meeting for August 26th, 2025 at 4:30. Opening prayers by Dr. Steve Tipton, Senior Pastor of Covenant Presbyterian Church, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Brian Granger. Please stand.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you this day for your presence with us, your goodness, your grace, your love towards us. Father, we thank you for the blessings that we enjoy in this city, for the peace and the quietness, Lord, that is a gracious gift to us from you. We thank you for these council members, and we pray, Father, that you would be with them to give them wisdom, understanding, that they might govern well, and pray, Lord, that we would all continue to serve you and to love you and to follow you. Pray your blessings upon us all. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, there's Commissioner Lucas on the screen. Ms. Smith, can you call the roll?
Mayor Branch,
Here.
Commissioner Lucas will join by Zoom, Commissioner Granger,
Present.
Commissioner Street,
Here.
and Commissioner Hughes is probably en route.
He's en route.
He's here out.
Yeah.
He's
We
outside.
have a forum though, we can still continue, correct?
But you have form, sir, yes.
You received the meeting minutes from August 12th, 2025. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Second?
Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes? Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Awesome. Any additions, deletions, or modifications to this agenda?
None from staff, Mr. Mayor.
None from the commissioners? All right, let's move on. Community announcements.
Yes, sir. The offices of the City of Panama City will be closed on Monday, September 1st in observance of the Labor Day holiday. Garbage collection will occur as scheduled. Those are our blue trash cans. But trash services, the bulk pickup, will be suspended on the holiday, resuming on Tuesday, September 2nd. The Panama City CRA, with support from Ward 2 Commissioner Janice Lucas, invites the public to a free lecture, Introduction to Incremental Development, on Thursday, September 4th, 2025, at the Barbara Nelson Fine Arts Center located at 1200 Harrison Avenue. Doors will open at 5:30 p.m. and the lecture will begin at 6 p.m. This event highlights small-scale, community-driven strategies to help revitalize neighborhoods post-Hurricane Michael. This lecture is free and open to the public, but registration is required. To do so, please visit our website at panamacity.gov. There are 2 upcoming budget hearings in September for the fiscal year 2026 budget. The first hearing will occur on Tuesday, September 9th, and the second or final hearing will be on Tuesday, September 23rd. Both hearings will take place right here at the Bay County Government Center and will begin at 5:01 p.m. Central Time. Registration for the Fall Slow Pitch Softball League is open through October 1st of 2025, with the season kicking off on October 14th. Players or teams of up to 20 players can register online now through our city website. There you will also find important dates such as the upcoming coaches meeting, the schedule for the games, and the champions reward. And that's all of our announcements, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Awesome. Quasi-judicial hearings.
Yep. Quasi-judicial hearings. During quasi-judicial proceedings, the commission will hear evidence and render a decision regarding the matter presented based upon the evidence received. The parties before the commission and the public are entitled to present evidence, such as documents and witnesses, etc., and cross-examine any witnesses. All parties and witnesses will be under oath and the entire proceedings recorded. The commission is not bound by the strict rules of evidence and may consider any evidence which it deems relevant and trustworthy. Any member of the commission may ask questions of the parties or the witnesses. Since quasi-judicial proceedings are legal in nature, everyone is expected to adhere to proper courtroom decorum and etiquette. Any comments or objections should be directed to the mayor. The burden of proof in a quasi-judicial proceeding rests with the applicant. Therefore, the applicant has the opportunity to address the commission last after all public participation and before the commission deliberates.
At this time, for the section of the agenda that's
for this time, for the section of the agenda that's under quasi-judicial, I'll swear in the staff who will remain under oath during the entire proceedings. I'd also ask that if you intend to speak during any of these items, that if you would also stand, and I will swear you in as well. So any of those that want to testify, that would like to, please stand. If during the public hearing you thought, ooh, I need to talk, that's fine. Also, you come in and I'll swear you in then. Anybody? Okay. Please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right, item number 6A is the second and final public hearing on ordinance 3276, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city to reflect a zoning designation of Neighborhood General, or NG, for a property located at 1410 Wilmot Avenue. This is parcel ID 29666-000-000. As background information, the applicant has requested a zoning change to Neighborhood General, NG. Staff recommends the City Commission approve the request. This item was previously reviewed by the Planning Board on July 14th of 2025, and the Planning Board recommended approval unanimously. Following documents are enclosed: the ordinance, the staff analysis, report and recommendation, and the adopted map series. Again, staff recommendation through the Director of Development Services is that the City Commission conduct the second and the final public hearing and then approve the ordinance. Mr. Mayor?
This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak on item 6A, please come to the podium. Anyone on 6A? All right, seeing none, closing the public comments. Do I have a motion?
Motion we approve.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yes, there were some outstanding questions from last time regarding specifically zoning of the house that's there and keeping it residential and meeting with the neighbors, and I think some et cetera, et cetera. There were several things. Do we have any updates on that, Michael, that you could?
Michael Fuller, Director of Development Services. Yes, so we did meet with the residents at the site with the owner and the neighbors there present. I think a couple of the questions that came up at the last commission meeting were dividing the parcel or splitting the parcel. It's currently one parcel. The one parcel has a old church building and a single family home on the one parcel. The question was asked, could it theoretically be split? Yes, in theory, it could be split. However, the parking situation would make that difficult because they're going to have to utilize the entirety of the one parcel for parking. So if you split them, you're going to have parking for, say, the old church building on a separate parcel, which could get messy. I think the other question that came up at the last meeting was about buffering. There is a buffering requirement between single family and multifamily uses. It's 5 feet in width and at least 6 feet in height.
Okay. Was there any agreement between neighbors or anything else like that? How do you feel like that meeting went?
I think some of the neighbors, we alleviated, or some of their concerns were alleviated by meeting with them and the owner. However, I think at least a couple of the neighbors were not totally satisfied.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So the only thing I'll add, we went through a very intentional process, and it's a very delicate process to determine where commercial and residential lines are drawn. This one specifically, it makes perfect sense to me that Neighborhood General would be where the church property is, but there's a single family home that's right beside it that would have made sense had they been separate parcels to be. That's personally where I'm at still with it, is I think the single family home should remain a single family home here. But I could support the commercial building moving to a different category. Understand the parking issue. I don't really know how to resolve that, but the chances are, it's not just the usage that's opened up by, I mean, 2 apartments is very different, but in neighborhood general, there's a lot of other uses that it could potentially be in a single-family home. And so, anyway, I think, I worked through this process with the neighbors and the neighborhoods for multiple years. We came up with these lines. If the neighbors addressing it directly, don't want it at this point, then I'm going to support that. So that's kind of where I sit with it. If we can go back and divide it, or they want to have more time, but I don't guess the applicant's here, so there's no really way for me to ask that question if they want to go try and divide it, because once we vote one way or the other, it's done for a year, if I'm correct. So it won't come back.
Mr. Mayor, Michael, I have a question. If it's all under one right now, and neighborhood general allows for single family,
It does.
It does.
so if we were to divide it, or they were to divide it afterwards, would they have to go through this again? If we divide it into 2 properties, do they each get neighborhood general, excluding what Josh was saying is separate from what's being asked?
I think, if I'm hearing correctly, it's to divide the property, then
ask for
zone
your-
part of it neighborhood general and leave the other part of it neighborhood residential.
Okay, but neighborhood general allows for single family in it.
Correct.
Why would we not include that in there?
The other allowable uses. So you can take a single-family home in neighborhood general and do, Michael.
You can do multifamily, yeah, there's other uses in there.
There's, and it's commercial. You could have a store, you could have.
Retail, yeah, you're
I
right.
could do retail, and that's the bulk of the concern. Even when we went through this planning process before, the bulk of the concern was around commercial uses encroaching into neighborhoods. And so, where do you draw the line? We did our best that we could. I'm not saying it's a perfect process, and I think this is one of the places it is. I think that it isn't perfect. I think that the old church facility absolutely should be commercial. No argument with that. I fully believe that. But the single-family home, all surrounding it is single-family homes. And so-
Okay. Can you limit on the single family as use in that designation to be single or up to, a triplex is that allowable?
Like, further restrict the level
On
use.
just the house? And not give it all, because, you're going to open the church up to the same uses as the house, but at least it's starting with a more correct premise, I think. Is that?
Not something we've done that I can recall as a city, that we restrict particular uses on the property.
Okay.
I've heard of, I know there are deed restrictions, that maybe that's something they can impose some
And
deed.
Josh's concern is valid. They walk in and do a grocery store and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
And that's the only concern, and which is a valid concern. And I can't really, and those are the issues we work through in creating these maps in the first place. And so for me to immediately within 6 months go and start changing that and saying, hey, I know what we said, but we're really going to do this. I just don't want to put my name behind that specific thing. I think it 100% makes sense in this particular case that an old church facility would be a commercial use. Or a residential use, whatever they wanted to use it for from that side. But the single-family home, that's next to a single-family home, that makes sense to me to stay single-family. The solution I would provide, if everybody still, if people agree, then what I would say is let's table it. Maybe Michael will have another comment, because what I don't want to do is ultimately derail this applicant with a 1-year stay on doing anything, because once we vote, it's done for a year.
Yeah.
So-
And he's not here.
Yeah, he's not. I don't think.
Oh, thank
He
you.
doesn't want to, he doesn't want
No,
to say anything.
He's not here.
I don't see
Yeah.
it here.
Since the applicant is not here, I'd like to withdraw my second.
And I'll withdraw my motion. And I would make a motion that we table and give Michael the opportunity to talk with the applicant and come to the next meeting, please.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 to table till next meeting.
So this public hearing, it'll be picked up again in 2 weeks.
Item 6B is the second and final public hearing on ordinance 3277.1, an ordinance on the voluntary annexation of approximately .445 acres of property located at Highway 390, which is parcel ID 26718-195-000. As background information, the applicant has requested an annexation of future land use change and a rezoning to General Commercial 2 or GC2. This item was previously reviewed by the Planning Board on July 14th of 2025, and staff concurred. The approval unanimously. The following documents are enclosed. Ordinance number 3277.1, staff analysis report and recommendation, and the adopted map series, including aerial annexation, future land use, and zoning maps. Staff recommendation to the Director of Development Services that the Commission conduct the second and final public hearing and then approve the ordinance. Mr. Mayor?
This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak about item 6B, please come to the podium. Anyone on 6B? Seeing none. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question, because this is three of the same. And is that three application that he had to do?
Is there three?
Well, it's
Annexation.
the annexation and the zoning and the land use, all that we can combine that. But is that three applications that he had to do?
No, it's one application.
Okay.
It's just done with 3 ordinances.
Okay,
Any other discussion?
that's it.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Commission has approved ordinance number 3277.1, an ordinance of the city approving the voluntary annexation of .445 acres of unincorporated property located at Highway 390 into the city, as further defined here and after amending the wards and boundaries of the city to include said land and providing for an effective date.
Item 6C is the second and final public hearing on ordinance 3277.2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the city to reflect the land use designation of general commercial for a property located at Highway 390, parcel ID 26718-195-000. Background information enclosed, as this is the same information as the prior item. Staff recommendation to the Director of Development Services is that the City Commission conduct the second and final hearing and approve the ordinance. Mr. Mayor?
This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak about item 6C, please come to the podium. Anyone on 6C? Seeing none. Closing public comments. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Commission has approved ordinance number 3277.2, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan future land use map of the city to reflect a land use designation of general commercial for a parcel of property located at Highway 390, Panama City, Florida, providing for repealer, severability, and effective date.
Item 6D is the second and final public hearing on ordinance 3277.3, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city to reflect the zoning designation of General Commercial 2 or GC2 for a property located at Highway 390 with parcel ID 26718-195-000. Background information is enclosed, as this information is the same as the prior 2 items. Staff recommendation to the Director of Development Services is that the Commission conduct the second and final public hearing and then approve the ordinance.
This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak about item 6D, please come to the podium. Seeing none. Closing public comments. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
The commission has approved ordinance number 3277.3, an ordinance zoning a parcel of property located at Highway 390, Panama City, having approximately .445 acres, GC2, providing for severability and effective date.
We are in item 7, which is audience participation. If you'd like to speak about any items related to the agenda, from items 8 all the way to 12, please come to the podium. No public comments? Oh, there we go. Come on, Mr. Henry.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Doing well. Walter P. Henry, 614 Maple Avenue. Last week we were talking about the restoration on property that folks own inside the city of Panama City. And y'all charging a price to register these empty properties. And I just wonder why where you can go next door and get that same information without folks paying for this registering property. There's no houses on it. Wooded. City got down my street, I have the same problem. City ain't taking care of their own property that folks yield them to make a road and everything, and have things to put power lines and water lines on and everything, any type of utilities. Y'all never clean it. I keep my section and some folks don't think they probably don't supposed to clean in front of their property like that. I keep the city property clean, better than the city keep it. If I didn't, it'll look like the street, it'll look like the same fix on the other side of my house where there's vacant property. And y'all not clean, keeping your own right of ways clean. Another thing I like to say, I've never seen Greenwood Cemetery like it is in years. I worked for the city 31 years. That cemetery stayed clean. Never seen that cemetery like it is now. That one is over the Oakland Terrace. Never seen those. Never like they are now. Y'all you clean them back in the 70s. Now we're in 2025. Now we're not able to keep that cemetery clean. I don't know if you own it or you don't own it. I know you don't own Redwood. I know you don't own Hillside. Y'all don't clean those. Y'all have one couple of times y'all went in and cleaned them, but y'all don't clean those. But y'all worry about everything else. Well, I think you need to go next door and get the paperwork from them.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Comments related to agenda items, please. All right, seeing none, closing public comments. Consent agenda.
Motion we approve consent agenda.
A second?
Real quick, I know I was late, and I'm sorry. There's 3 items on the consent agenda that are city, and I think we ought to promote them. Like, we got backstage pass, we've got the lighting the Christmas tree and the Christmas parade. They're asked, talking about it here first helps promote what we're doing, rather than just say yes and talk about it later. Do you see what I'm saying? They're on the consent agenda because the city didn't ask for any special favors,
right,
any credits. But just to say yes and then bring it up later. Now we are voting on having backstage pass. Let's talk about it. Having the Christmas parade coming up, not a week before. I'm just saying this was an opportunity for us. Let's think about that going forward. If we can start promotion from up here.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion?
The only thing I'd just make a comment on Robbie's comment. You said they're not asking for anything, but they are asking to put this in the budget. So they are asking.
Well, that's true. Yes, that's true.
Any other discussion?
I mean, and we will promote them 6 ways from Sunday, but if you want me to read them today, I'm happy to do that.
No,
Oh, okay.
I just thought, I was reading last night, I thought there's an opportunity to start from up here. Nothing bad, just.
It will, eventually they'll end up, when the time's appropriate, on the announcements, just
Okay.
earlier in the agenda, so we get a little bit closer.
Okay.
So all that information, it'll be a dedicated slide and a narrative that I'll read and everything.
All right.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Streets?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
We are down to the city clerk. So past commission, but yeah, item 10. That's just way down the side.
Item 10A is consideration to approve Resolution 2025-0826.3 and authorize the refinancing of Capital Improvement Revenue Note Series 2023 in the principal amount of $150 million of tax-exempt short-term debt approving a loan and escrow account agreement with Truist Bank, and authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents to effectuate debt issuance. As background information, the city issued the Capital Improvement Revenue Note Series 2023 on August 23, 2023, with Truist Bank for an amount not to exceed $150 million at a fixed interest rate of 5.82%. for a period of 36 months with no prepayment penalty. The note was used to refund $24.5 million of hurricane recovery lines of credit and is being used to fund $275 million worth of projects that the city was awarded as a result of Hurricane Michael through FEMA, through the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Relief Program, through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and other state of Florida appropriations. The reason for the refunding is to adjust the interest rate from a 5.82% fixed rate to a variable rate of 0.79% of 1-month term SOFR plus 0.917%, and to extend the term of the loan to September 1st, 2027. The remaining terms and conditions of the Series 2023 note are mostly unchanged. The adjustment to the variable rate of interest is expected to reduce interest payments by approximately $2.1 million through September 1st, 2026, assuming market conditions as of August 13th, 2025. The loan term extension is necessary to ensure sufficient time to receive grant reimbursements that will be used for loan repayment after the completion of the projects. The department head recommendation is to approve the refunding of the Capital Improvement Revenue Note Series 2023 pursuant to the terms provided in substantially the form attached, approving a loan and escrow account agreement with Truist Bank, and authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents to effectuate the debt issuance.
And Mr. Mayor, as the commission is considering this, we do have in the audience Joel Tyndall. Joel is our financial advisor with Hilltop Securities, and also Alex Fisher. And Alex is with our bond counsel, is Mark Mustin with the law firm of Neighbors Giblin. And Alex is here on Mark's behalf. So any questions, they are here to answer any questions that you may have.
I just want to give kudos to whoever went and got a lower interest rate in today's market, so before next week.
Before we go to the motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, now we discuss.
This last sentence here, the loan term extension is necessary to ensure sufficient time to receive grant reimbursements that will be used for the loan to repay. Can you, for the benefit of the public, can you help kind of walk through the process just real quick on how that works?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
And why we need 150 million is what that for.
Right. So the $150 million was to refund the Hurricane Michael lines of credit and to properly pay for these improvements, this capital project program of $275 million. Let's start at $275 million. The grants work where you have to pay for the work that gets done, and then you request reimbursement from the grant. So of all these we have 35 projects ongoing right now. So we're paying upfront for all these projects to continue, then we request reimbursement from the grants. So once the projects are completed, which the timeline for completion has been estimated at December 31st, 2026, it will take 4, 5, 6 months of additional time to get the reimbursements back from the granting agencies. So that's why it goes out farther than the project timeline does.
Wonderful.
Jan, could you share with us what the general fund allocation savings will be as a result of this? It's 2.1 overall, but what is that is actually hitting the general fund?
I think it's 800,000.
800,000. Okay, thank you.
And I
And
proposed
that's
a
just an
question.
estimate.
And I asked, like, can we borrow less money? And Ms. Smith was super responsive and very kind, listening to all my crazy questions. So thank
Not
you.
crazy.
You mean close out the 150 and borrow less from that?
Yeah, just borrow less, and that was an option.
Yeah.
To get our projects done on a timely manner.
But
It is still potential if reimbursements come
We can still
faster, we
prepay at
can.
any time.
Yes.
Without
And
penalty.
and we'll be watching, I'll be watching that closely. As soon as I can start paying it down, I will start
so
paying it down.
the carrying cost has been paid by the interest that's earned on the investment, is that right?
For the first year, for the fiscal year 2024, the earnings on the investments paid for the interest costs. But 25, it did not, and 26, it
Okay,
was.
so how much were we separate on 25? Is that $3 million?
$8 million.
About 6 million.
Six.
Year.
Okay. And that's because we have less money in the kitty earning interest, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, as I draw it, there's less in the portfolio to earn.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to read the title to the resolution, and the title is a long one, just letting you know. It's Resolution Number 2025-0826.3. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Panama City, Florida, authorizing the issuance by the city of not exceeding $150 million in principal amount of its capital improvement revenue refunding note Series 2025 to provide funds for capital improvements within the city and the repayment of certain prior indebtedness, authorizing the award of the sale of the note upon compliance with certain parameters, authorizing the execution and delivery of the form of attached amended and restated loan agreement between the city and Truist Commercial Equity, Inc. as purchaser of the note, covenanting to budget and appropriate legally available non-ad valorem revenues to pay the note, providing for repeal of inconsistent provisions, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Item 10B is a notice of vacancy on the Board of Trustees for the City of Panama City Municipal Police Officers Pension Trust Fund. The Board of Trustees for the City of Panama City Municipal Police Officers Pension Trust Fund has one position open that expires on June 12, 2029. The city clerk's office has received one application that is in the process of interviews. Her name is Melanie Law, and she is in the audience if there's any questions for her today.
She's coming back.
I'll just note she's also a retired captain from the Panama City Police Department.
Very cool. Shane, we can't nominate her until she's gone through the interview process, or can we?
That's completely your
Does
prerogative.
anybody need more time?
I don't.
I don't need more time.
Okay.
Did you go to work today?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
All you had to do was walk down the
That's
podium.
it. Thank you very much. Commissioner Granger?
Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
You're quite a
Commissioner
salesman.
Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you, Melanie.
Okay, item 10C is the notice of vacancy for the tenant commissioner on the Panama City Housing Authority. The Panama City Housing Authority has one position for a 4-year term that requires a resident who is current in rent in a housing project or a person of low or very low income who resides within the housing authority's jurisdiction and is receiving rent subsidy through a program administered by the authority or public housing agency that has jurisdiction for the same locality served by the housing authority. The clerk's office has received one application for the vacancy from Jane Reagan, and I believe she has completed the interview process. If you are in the mood to appoint this evening.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Congratulations.
Everyone gets 4-year terms but me. You know that?
They know.
Are you jealous?
Well,
Yeah.
the Charter Review Committee is working on this. Item 10D is the notice of term expirations on the Board of Architects. The Board of Architects has 3 positions for 3-year terms that expire September 12th, 2028. The current members are Medhat Elmeski, Charles Helmer, and Michael Honeycutt. They have expressed an interest in retaining their positions on the board. Their interviews are in process as well.
They're already on the board.
Does
They're
anybody-
already on the board, and they would like to retain their
No,
seat.
I spoke to Michael.
Set.
We got a motion?
Yep. Motion to approve.
Second.
We got, okay, any discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. And finally, the notice of term expirations on the Downtown Improvement Board, item 10E. The Downtown Improvement Board has 3 positions for 3-year terms that expire on September 12, 2028. The current board members, Jacob Sostheim, Leslie Todd, and Chantel World, have expressed an interest in retaining their positions on the board. They are also in the interview process.
Does anyone need more time?
I haven't met with them, but I mean, it's your nomination.
Yeah, I'd actually like to let's put that to the next meeting. I'll go
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay?
All right, so you don't need to read. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess. I believe to sign paperwork. correct?
Yes, thank you.
All right, let's get back into the meeting. We are on item 11, city manager.
Item 11A is consideration to approve a budget amendment for Resolution 2025-0826.1 to transfer budgeted funds from CRA Fund 180 to the Parks, Culture, and Recreation General Fund 001 for the Daffin Park batting cage in the amount of $9,040.00. Background information: on March 3rd, 2025, the CRA agreed to provide funding for the batting cage at Daffin Park. PCR purchased the batting cage on May 8th, 2025 from Omega Sports in the amount of $9,404.00. Staff recommends that the commission approve this request for the budget amendment resolution. Mr. Mayor?
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Nevin?
Mr. Zinger?
I'd like to read the budget amendment resolution, which is resolution number 2025-0826.1, a resolution providing for the amendment of the approved fiscal year 24-25 budget to transfer budgeted funds from the Millville CRA to the general fund for the purchase of the Daffin Park batting cage.
Item 11B is consideration of approval of Budget Amendment Resolution 2025-0826.2 to increase the budget for unexpected freight and postage expenses in the Customer Service Utility Billing Division. As background information, the Customer Service Utility Billing Division has experienced an unexpected projected cost increase of $40,000 in freight and postage expenses during fiscal year 2025. This budget amendment will eliminate the current deficit in the account. Staff recommendation through both the city clerk and the city manager's office, the commission approve this request in the budget amendment resolution 2025-0826.2. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Commission is approved. Resolution 2025-0826.2, a resolution providing for the amendment of the approved fiscal year 24-25 budget to increase the budget for unexpected freight and postage expenses in the Customer Service Utility Billing Division.
Item 11C is a request to modify November-December meetings due to holidays, recommending collapse November's meeting into one to be held on Tuesday, November 18th at 4:30 p.m., and to collapse the 2 members in December into one to be Tuesday, December 16th at 4:30 p.m. Staff recommendations to the city manager's office. The commission approved the recommendations as explained here today for the November-December meetings.
Do I have a motion?
Motion. Motion.
Discussion?
Was there actually a motion?
I heard one over here.
I heard one.
Second.
We both
You
moved.
said there was a motion.
We said,
I have
vote just said
Commissioner
motion.
Granger.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
There's like
You got one of us.
I said second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 11D is presentation and discussion of the FEMA disaster recovery funding options, considerations, and long-term debt implications. As background information, approximately 1 year ago, the city submitted an errors and admissions amendment for FEMA project worksheet, or PW 2202, related to the Panama City Marina infrastructure project. This included revised cost estimates and a request to increase the project's obligated funding. Recently, FEMA approved the revised cost estimate and obligated an additional $8.9 million for the project, increasing the total obligation from $13.5 million to $22.46 million, just under our original request of $25.5 million. This significant increase has created an opportunity for the City Commission to strategically realign funding to support key priorities, including the Martin Theater rebuild project. The prior commission approved our current funding path using funds from 4 non-Section 428 FEMA projects to help fund the $32 million Martin Theater reconstruction project. With the additional obligated funds, the city now has over $40 million allocated to this project. For discussion, there are 3 funding options to consider, or the city can continue with the current path also provided. Staff is seeking guidance on how to maximize the use of the increased funds in a way that aligns with the Commission's long-term vision while minimizing the amount of money that must be returned to FEMA. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we do have representatives this evening here from the Integrity Group, some of our disaster recovery consultants. We have Gary Yates, the CEO, and Olivia Schmidt, the Senior Vice President of Program Services. And I believe Ms. Schmidt is going to present a presentation with some background in history. And then after that time, both Mr. Yates and Ms. Schmidt, along with staff, are willing to answer any questions that y'all might have. And I know that there's a desire for y'all to be able to finally discuss this amongst yourselves as well. So, Ms. Schmidt, if you'll come to the podium and just formally give your name, title, and company. And if you're ready, we'll jump right into the PowerPoint.
Okay. Hi. Good evening. My name is Olivia Schmidt, and I'm with the Integrity Group. And I guess I'm the...
Yep. All right, Donald, we're going to go and jump right to it.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we've put together a PowerPoint, and you will see some of this stuff is kind of the basic background knowledge of FEMA and the programs and stuff like that. We're starting there, not for your education, but for everyone's. I want everyone to understand the parameters that you guys are under and the constrictions that you have, so you can communicate that clearly with what you can and can't do, because these federal parameters are they have to be enforced in order to go forward with a plan. So we can't, there are certain things we can and can't do. And so I want to make sure that we explain all of that to everyone before we get into the options, so everyone knows why we've selected the options that we have. Okay, so there's 3 basic types of FEMA projects. You have the 428. It's based, the cost formulation is based on an estimate. There's a lot of flexibility. It is a capped project, and you have access to excess funding. So that is the 428. The non-428 or standard lane project is based on actuals or estimates. There is no flexibility. You have to build the original scope of work that's agreed to in the original project worksheet. There is no cap, so if you go over on a standard lane project, you can submit those costs, and if it is in line with the original scope of work, they will pay the overages. There is no excess funding unless you use it towards the scope of work. So you don't get extra money, or you can't just add on to a scope of work and get extra dollars. And then you have the improved and alternate project, and that is based on an estimate. And there is some flexibility because you can submit the scope of work that you would like to do, but it is capped, and there is no access to the funding after the project is completed. Once you've completed the scope of work, any overages or under, if it's under budget, then you have to give back the money to FEMA. If it's over budget, it comes out of your pocket. Today, we are going to be talking about non-428 and improved projects. So a 428 project, I'm not going to read this to you guys, but basically applicants will use the 428 project when they have projects that they're not really interested in moving forward with. Something that you no longer fits your needs, or you don't need it in the same capacity. You would select a 428 project, you would change the scope of work, and you would build the project. If you come in under budget and you have excess funding, you can do other things with it. That is not what we're dealing with today. So I just wanted to go over that just in case someone has a question with 428, non-428. And 428, just for the record, is just the policy number. It really has no other significance other than that.
And you got here.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any of those that we've done or are doing right now?
Yes, sir, you do have some 428 projects. The MLK building is actually all 428 projects.
Thank you.
And that was combined, how many projects went into?
I think 9?
9 different projects.
9 or 12?
So, a lot.
It was a few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
9 to 12, something
Yeah,
like that.
somewhere in there. It's a significant amount of your projects went to MLK. The non-428 or standard project is a traditional project, is written to replace a facility that was damaged during a hurricane. They write the project on estimates. If you do not have any work completed, they will write it on work completed if you have it completed. If you follow the scope of work and you have overages, they will pay out those overages insofar as they are outlined in the scope of work. So if you increase the type of roofing that you do, or you change conduit, or you build thicker walls or add extra rooms, then you're not eligible for your overages. That's on you because you've gone outside of the scope of work. So that's the standard project. And then we have the improved project. So this improved project starts as a non-428 standard lane project. You usually get these projects, you write them, and then after the fact you say, you know what, I really don't want to go back with that project. We want to take those funds and go somewhere else. So you submit a new scope of work as an alternate or improved project. So improved would be that you want to build back the same building, but you want to make it larger, or you want to make some changes to the footprint, or you want to do different things inside the building where it's not exactly the scope of work, but it is the same project, same type of scope of work. Then you have an alternate project, which is what we're doing here. We're taking funds from an original project and we're putting it towards a completely separate project. The reason that we were able to go back with errors and omissions is because this is a standard lane project. If it was a 428 project, you agree to a cost estimate and you are locked into that. You can't go back to the table. You can't have reconsiderations. You can't open up the walls and find mold or anything like that. That's all on you. So we have the standard lane project, and we were able to go back and petition FEMA to reevaluate the PC Marina Infrastructure Project 2202, and they agreed that some of the infrastructure was not originally captured correctly and that there was a discrepancy in the obligated dollars. And they were very generous in giving us the additional $8.9 million.
Olivia, the original scope for the marina wasn't correct. Is that my understanding?
So it was really the CEF, the cost estimate, left out some things, and it didn't really capture all of the damages. We added significant amount of damages. I think a lot of it was pylons and decking and piers were not captured appropriately. I was not here when that was done, so I'm not super familiar with the background of how it was created, but we did know that it was significantly low. And so we wanted to at least try our hand at that. And FEMA did agree that the scope of work, or the CEF, the cost estimate, was not encapsulated in everything that was damaged, and they did agree to reconsider. And they did consider, and they did come forward with additional money. So that money, just so you know, because just in case this is a question, that money has not been finally obligated. It is going through the queues at FEMA. There is some hazard mitigation money, which we'll talk about later, that could potentially expedite that, or however we want to go about that, but we can discuss that at a later time. But I did want you to know that if you were to go into Florida PA today and pull it up, it does still say the original $13 million, 13 and change, just because it hasn't gone through. We have got no inclination that it is not processing and that it isn't just stuck in FEMA queue land.
So to clarify, we're at I think we're year 7, almost approaching year 8, and we still haven't technically received this funding yet.
Well, you have the 13 million.
We have some,
You
but we don't have
13.
the
You don't-
actual cost of the dam.
Yes, you don't have the 18 million. So we submitted the new estimate in August of last year. I think it was like August 10th, 7th or 10th, something like that. We submitted it. We did not receive word back from them until like late May, early June, that they were going to potentially consider giving us more. We actually asked for about 25 and a half, and we got on a call with FEMA and they said, listen, if you will just agree to the 22 and a half, we will sign it and push you on your way. And so I went back and reworked it out, and it was the standard percentages and everything. And so we were not going to be able to push for any higher dollar amount. Didn't see any fruit in continuing to extend the amount of time we were in the system, just trying to get them to agree to more money. There was no way they were going to come off of the 22. So we could have kept trying, but just didn't see any fruit on that tree. So we agreed to the 22 and a half.
So to be clear to everybody in the audience and everybody who's watching online or in the future, we don't have this extra money right now, but these are options that are being presented to
Correct.
us so that if and when it does hit, we'll be able to hit.
So when it does hit, yes, sir. And I have a FEMA estimation between 4-ish months is what they are telling us before they can put the check in the state's bank.
So of the $25
Sorry.
million estimate that's on the downtown marina, they did not provide us enough money to actually rebuild back the way that it was. We came to a settlement. essentially.
Correct.
I think that was it.
So.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I left one key thing out. There is no vote expected tonight. There is no decision that the commission is making tonight. Staff, working with integrity, desire to kind of go through all this with y'all one-on-one as we did over the last week and a half, and then additional time of discussion this evening. The desire is to bring this back at the September 9th commission meeting for y'all to make a decision. So just want to make sure there's no decision, no vote being made on this tonight.
Sure.
All right, so the extra money, that came from the wetland or the upland or all of that? And you calculated
The entire scope of work, we basically reevaluated. We sent it off we sent the original CEF or cost estimating formula to Panhandle Engineering?
Correct.
Panhandle, sorry, Panhandle Engineering, and they assisted us in evaluating all of the damages and increasing those amounts by what was actually damaged and not what was submitted in the original CEF. So this is HMP versus HMGP. You're going to hear these terms a lot, so just wanted to go ahead and clear it up for anyone who has any questions. HMP, which is Hazard Mitigation Project, it is a 406, or you will hear it HMP or 406 mitigation. This mitigation is related to a damaged piece of property or facility during the storm. Okay, so if something got broken or torn down or whatever, you can rebuild it, and then they will give you additional funding to make it more resilient for the future. They insist on obtaining and maintaining insurance, and so they want you to have the most resilient facility that you can have, so they will give you additional funding to do that. Now the HMGP, which is 404 mitigation, is a fund provided by FEMA, but doesn't necessarily have to have a tie back to a direct disaster. So it's a lot of historical stuff. So if you have a historical neighborhood that floods every time it rains more than 2 inches in an hour, then you can do a buyback program, or you can increase a retention pond where you have expanded your community and you've like, oh no, now we need an additional retention pond because now we have flooding over here, or flood walls, or things like that. But it does not have to be damaged in the storm. So this is funded through the county's LMS working group. And so they put together, they go through the state, you submit your projects to the state works with FEMA, and they give you 75% of your hazard mitigation grant. So that's the difference. So everything we're going to talk about tonight will be HMP, okay? So these are the projects that are up for discussion. The first one is the Martin Theater Project, 2221. Your original gross obligation was $17.6 million. FEMA anticipated your insurance at $4.3 million, and your actual insurance proceeds were $4.5 million, bringing your anticipated for donation you're originally before today and all the insurance reconciliation, it was listed at 13.3, so you may have seen that number in the past, but the actual number available for donation is the $13,095,608.66.
Who's donating that money?
Sir?
Who's donating that money?
Oh, well, you guys are. Okay, so the next project is the St. Andrews Marina Infrastructure Project. This is the marina. And so your gross obligation was $4.6 million. Your anticipated insurance was about $126,000, or let's call it $127,000. Your H&P for a more resilient infrastructure was at 117.5, and then your actual insurance proceeds were $260,000. And so we did the adjustments here. You will see that you have the actual available donation with the H&P at 4.3 million and the actual available without H&P at 4.2 million. This is the bulkhead project, which is also currently slated to go towards the Martin Theater. All of these projects are currently slated to go to the Martin Theater. This project was written, originally gross obligation was 13.5, and you have an H&P of 1.7 million. This is over there where it says revised obligation, that's where it has the $22,463,201. So it's X'd out, but that's that number. It's just the actual available minus the H&P. So if you were to go back and build the marina infrastructure and you were going to go back with the original scope of work and do a marina project, you would have access to the $1.7 million. In none of the options that we have here tonight have it where this money is going to any kind of marina. In all three options, this project 2202 is slated for the Martin Theater. So So this is the recap of what we just discussed. Your original obligated amount prior to the addition was about $36.5 million. Today, you have $40.6 million. And this is not counting the H&P or anything like that, because these are just the basic raw numbers. So here we go. Okay, so today our goals and why we're here today is to maximize your FEMA funding and to minimize the amount of funding that goes back to FEMA. From what we've been hearing from our meetings last week, our goals are to complete the Martin Theater project, minimize long-term debt, and agree on some alternative projects to utilize those additional fundings. So the current projects, the refurbishment and remodeling of the Martin Theater is estimated at $32 million, and the project is currently under construction with a completion date of 2027. That's the best date I got. And then the other project that we have, that the city has already slated to complete is the St. Andrews bulkheads, and that was estimated at $12.9 million. The reason this is here is because in the previous slide you saw that it says to minimize debt, long-term debt, and so it needs to be stated that in this presentation, the only debt that has been considered is the bulkheads and the Martin Theater, because that's what you've already agreed to pay. Now, if you want to do something else or you have other projects, we can certainly add those dollars or those projected estimates into the long-term debt totals for a more realistic picture on all the things that need to be done. But this is all that's being calculated right now in our long-term debt. So anytime you see long-term debt, it's just considering the 32 million and the 12.9.
I thought the Martin was paid off when it's done.
Well, there are options.
Okay. That's why it's
Yes, sir.
like
Yes, sir.
in your
Yes, sir.
presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
These are like puzzle pieces.
Right,
So it depends on
right.
what
Which
you
works best.
Yes.
I feel like I'm getting a really bad movie.
Yes. Yeah.
You're doing
Sorry,
great.
I don't
No,
practice.
you're doing fantastic. It's just a lot of information.
I know, I'm trying not to talk too quickly.
You're doing great.
So this is the current path that you're on. All four of these projects are currently slated to go to the Martin Theater. And this would be $40.5 million going to the Martin Theater. And as we stated in the previous slide, the estimate currently is at 32 million, leaving forward. Okay, so this is the pros and cons of your current path. It does cover the full cost of the Martin Theater, and you can submit for reimbursement pretty quickly. And there's no change in your originally agreed to timeline as far as we can foresee at this time. Now, we can't predict a lot of things, but as it states right now, if you went with this path, there would be no real change. We have not done a drawdown on the Martin Theater to reimburse you for your already commitments to them. And the reason why is because once you do a drawdown on a project, you cannot change it. And so one of these options actually removes the Martin Theater. And so we didn't want to do a drawdown on the Martin Theater in the event that you want to move the 13 million to another project. And so we kind of tried to buy some time and slow things down. But if you went with this, you could immediately do a drawdown. But the con is that you would end up if the 32 million is accurate, you would give back $8.5 million. And we just begged for $8.9 million. So it seems a shame to go through all of that just to give it right back to FEMA. And so we will also have to file amendments to move some of these projects off of their current path onto a new path. And we can talk about timelines and stuff that's further on during the thing, but these are our pros and cons for your current path. The biggest con being giving back $8.5 million. Nobody wants to do that. Okay, the option one keeps 2221, which is the Martin Theater project, and the PC Marina project at the Martin Theater, and gives you $35.5 million to finish the Martin Theater. This is a significant amount of money. It fully covers your Martin Theater project and gives you some wiggle room for any kind of issues that may arise. It also leaves you with PW's 2295, which is the St. Andrews Marina, and 1971. In this particular option, this would be a non-marina project. So you see that the HMP is not included on 2295 because it would not be eligible for a non-marina project. Okay. The pros and cons of this option: it covers the full cost of the Martin Theater. You can submit for reimbursement pretty quickly because we are not changing the Martin Theater project. That's already been approved, so we can immediately submit reimbursements requests and you can start getting paid back. It allows for the new project allows for the new project not related to Martin Theater. Okay, so it gives you another option for a non-marina project. So it gives you $5 million roughly to go to a project that we have not discussed, is not related to any of the projects that are on our board. So if you were to come in at budget, you would return $3.5 million to FEMA, which is way better than $8.5 million, but it's still a significant amount of money that you could potentially put somewhere else. We will have to do scope revisions, which we're going to have to do probably with any of these. So I don't want that to be a huge con, but I do want you to know and understand that that will affect timelines. It does not address your bulkhead funding, and there is a potential timeline depending on the type of project. So if you were to go back and build something that that breaks pristine ground or is not an original project where you're going back on broken ground, or if you decide to expand a footprint of a project more than 20%, you will have to go through a full environmental assessment, which can take time, which we'll get into further at another time. Option two is the same as option one insofar as 2221 and 2202 are still slated for the Martin Theater at $35.5 million. But because this is because this is a marina type project, you would have access potentially to the HMP. Now, I will go over this a little bit further in future slides, but the HMP, you have to fulfill the scope of work. And so you can't just have the HMP for a new facility and call it HMP because it's resilient for your new project. It doesn't work like that. They wrote that HMP on what was pre-existing, and if you can't use that scope of work, then those funds are not available to you. So this gives you, with the HMP, considering that you were going to do something that did utilize the scope of work for the hazard mitigation, you would have $5.1 million for a non-bulkhead project. But if you were to use this money towards your bulkhead project, you would not be able to utilize the HMP, and so you would be back at the 4.98. This one covers the full cost of the Martin Theater.
Do we know what the 117's written for already?
Yes, sir. I have in here when I get to that
Oh, okay.
for considerations. But it's basically stuff related to, hold on. I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to lie to you. We'll get there.
That's fine.
If I haven't answered your question by the end, please reiterate that. So this one covers the Martin Theater, gives you some wiggle room. City can submit for reimbursement, no change in your timeline for the Martin Theater. You also potentially return the $3.5 million if you don't use it all. It is a revised scope that needs to be filed, and then it does address some of the bulkhead, but does still leave $7.9 million unfunded for that as long-term debt. Option 3. So this is the first one that is not the same. This one puts the PC Marina and the St. Andrews Marina and the bulkhead project towards the Martin Theater for $27.4 million going towards Martin Theater, and puts 2221, the actual Martin Theater project, towards the bulkhead project. And in this scenario, we are, as you can clearly see, we are shorting the Martin Theater by $4.5 million roughly. And we are covering the entire bulkhead project for the 12.9. And it gives you a little bit of extra just in case. So this covers, the pros is it covers your St. Andrews bulkheads. It minimizes the money returned to FEMA because ultimately you would use all of the money and then need extra. So this is the smallest impact on your long-term debt. This project, from what I understand, design and permitting is already been handled. So it's pretty shovel ready. The cons are that it shorts your Martin Theater project by $4.5 million. We would have to remove the Martin Theater from that project, which could delay reimbursements because we would have access to about $4.9 million, but you wouldn't have access to the 13 right away. So once we got to the $5 million from the 2295 project drawdowns and the 1971 drawdowns, we would be in a holding pattern until the full process of the 2202 was obligated. And so once it's obligated, then we have to submit the amendment, and then they will move it to the Martin Theater and allow us to do drawdowns. So that would be the delay there, or that would be the con there. The next slide is basically the long-term debt consideration. Long-term debt, again, I'm going to say this, is being calculated based on estimates of $32 million for the Martin Theater and does not consider any possible change orders. And the $12.9 million for the St. Andrews bulkheads, also not considering any change orders or increase in costs. So option 1 leaves you with the full bulkhead, the 12.9. So that would give you something different. You would have an additional project. Since you've already committed to these 2 projects, you can ultimately say that you will have these projects, and then you would have a third project for the community. But it does leave you the city covering the $12.9 million out of city coffers, funds?
General fund.
General fund.
Marina Fund.
There you go. Okay. Option 2 is the Martin Theater and Marina project. And if you were to put the money towards a bulkhead, then it would reduce your debt to about $7.9 million in debt for the bulkhead project. But that's if you used it towards the bulkheads. Now there is an option where you could do another marina project that is not the bulkheads, but then you would still carry down the 12.9 in long-term debt. Option 3 is the Martin Theater and the bulkhead project, and it covers the full bulkhead project, and the long-term debt would be associated with the Martin Theater, but it is the smallest long-term debt total we have at $4.5 million. So this is the consideration of long-term debt only. It's just a different way to look at it. I know some commissioners and other members were concerned about long-term debt and wanted to see the options strictly from that perspective. Again, if you have another project that needs to be calculated into this, we can certainly add those numbers in and see where it fleshes out. But as we're sitting right now, this is what the long-term debt looks like. Okay, some things to remember. Long-term debt is only calculated, has already agreed to undertake. Additional projects in option 1 would eliminate any of the debt from the projects. It would not. So if you did anything other than any project that you would do in option 1 would not eliminate any of your debt. So that's basically what that's saying. Option 2, this is just kind of like a roundup. Option 2, 2295 does have $117,000 for HMP. However, if the money is used to offset bulkhead costs, then the HMP will not be eligible and only 4.9 will go towards that project. So there, like I said, there is a consideration where option 2 does leave you with the 12.9 in long-term debt if you decide to do another marina project outside of the bulkheads. Option 1 and 2 allow for the potential. It allows you for a buffer of the Martin Theater of about $3.5 million, but any of those funds that are not utilized will be returned to FEMA. So if you don't foresee your project coming to $34 million, I'm not sure that, I mean, you guys, just giving back money just makes me sad. But ultimately, it is significantly less than the 8.5. And then number 3, the bulkhead project is designed and permit exempt is what I've heard. These elements will reduce the timeline so we gave out last week when we were doing our meetings, we gave you some tables for each option, and option 3 had a timeline that had project design and permitting and all of those things listed as potential time, but if that has already been completed, you can go back and reduce that time frame by 12 to 24 months. But it will still have to go through EHP review queue, just because everything does. Okay, timeline considerations. Timelines are estimates, and there are numerous factors that can contribute to estimating a timeline, such as construction difficulties, weather, permitting, and design issues. The more shovel-ready your project is, the faster we can get it through the FEMA queues. And the type of project that you have will impact the duration of your environmental process. So EHP is by far the time suck when it comes to FEMA process. They can get stuck in there. I had one applicant have their project stuck in HMP from submission or in the FEMA queues from submission to completion for 47 months. I do not foresee that being an issue here because the state has agreed and confirmed that they have solved the issue for the delays that were associated with that back in 21 and 22. But still, I am not going to come up here and pray or swear or do anything to tell you what FEMA's going to do because I have no idea and they're unpredictable and I don't know. So I don't want to come in here and tell you that FEMA will have everything done in a year. That's what they predict. Typically, they say EHP lasts about a year if it's a full environmental assessment. If it's less than that, it should be 6 to 8 months. But we have evidence of it taking considerably longer. So I'm not going to make promises.
Not the Martin. Yeah, the Martin and MLK Rec Center took much longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
MLK Rec Center, actually, they passed it through EHP and then realized, oh, wait, we missed a spot, and it took another 8 to 10 months. So, yeah, you're correct.
With the benefit of the new guys
Sure.
in the public, EHP, what that process is and why you can't spend this money unless the project is confirmed.
Okay, so EHP actually stands for Environmental Historical Preservation. And it basically, because this is federal money, we have to protect federal grounds. If you have a project that either is on pristine ground or if it is expanding the original footprint by 20%. So think as small as taking a 4-foot sidewalk and making it a 5-foot sidewalk. That would initiate a full environmental assessment. And so basically, if you have to go into a full environmental assessment, you have to contact every federal agency, every state agency. There's 7 tribes in the state of Florida that have to be notified. You have to give all of those people time to respond and say if they have any questions, if they want further evaluations. So everybody gets a chance to look at your project on the federal, state, and tribal level. So that's just a slow process. And so if you have a historical project, which I'm sure the Martin Theater probably took a little bit extra time because it got stuck in historical stuff. And sometimes they'll make requirements for you to go back with historically correct period time stuff. For the preservation purposes, or they will talk about your relinquishing of your historical designation. There's a bunch of things that can happen in that. I don't foresee that the historical or the preservation part being an issue here, but any projects at the marinas will probably garner a full EA because it's in a coastal construction zone, and it's dealing with water, and every time you get into any kind of coastal area, environmental goes up and time goes down. So that's just
affectionately
typical.
called the endless hurdles process.
Yes.
The endless hurdles process.
Okay, so things to consider, timeline considerations. Option 3 removes the actual Martin Theater project, 2221. It could further delay drawdowns because we would have to remove the actual Martin Theater. Right now, the Martin Theater is the only project that is currently slated to go to the Martin Theater. But the Martin Theater has a full environmental record of concern, and so when we go to put the other projects on there, we will submit the environmental record of concern, and it should appease the EHP process. So getting the other projects into the Martin Theater is not going to be as much of a problem as getting the Martin Theater out of the Martin Theater, if that makes any sense.
You're saying it would trigger an EHP process all over again if we took 2221 away from Martin?
Sir, I'm sorry.
If we took the 2221 away from the Martin, it's going to trigger the EHP process.
Only because of the new scope of work that we'll put on it, which would be potentially, in option 3, it would be the bulkheads. So the bulkhead project would have to process through EHP. Now, these other ones will have to process. So 2295, if we put it on the Martin Theater, 2202, if we put it on the Martin Theater, they will have to go through the queue. But if we can send it through the queue with the environmental record, saying, hey, we've already checked this scope of work, we don't have any problems with it, it's met all of the standards, we've already notified everyone, everybody knows about this project, it's not a big deal, it should pass very quickly. I have gotten it from the state. I have talked to the state about all of these options. So the state is aware and ready to expedite whatever path we choose as far as they can. It still has to leave the state and go to FEMA, and that's where our control kind of becomes nil. Like, we have no control over FEMA. We can call every single day, but either they will take it and move forward with it, or it will sit until someone's available to evaluate it.
So Olivia, can you clarify what Commissioner Granger's question was? So if the Martin Theater project moves from the Martin, then the Martin Theater itself has to go back through EHP review?
Only
Or
because you're
just
going
the
to
new
submit a new scope of work.
Okay. Will that happen on any of these options or just that one option?
No, any project, so anytime we change the scope of work, anytime you submit an amendment to change the scope of work from what it was originally drafted as in the original project, it has to go through
So
all the queues again.
options are going to do this?
The caveat with that is that the Martin Theater scope, the new scope of the Martin Theater has already been approved. And so anything going into the Martin Theater will be reduced because it's already gone through the full EHP review.
So is that the same with any option?
Yes, so as far as the Martin Theater is concerned, right? So if you were to do a project, a non-marina project, I think one of them that was pulled out was Joe Moody Park, and I'm just using it for an example. That one has also already gone through EHP review. So if you were going to put money at Joe Moody Park to fulfill the scope of work that was already approved, then again, we would just attach that environmental record of concern to the project that we were going, 2295 in this case. We would submit 2295, the new scope of work for Moody Park, and we would submit the environmental record and say, you've already looked at this, just get us through the queues.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the $5 million, if we put it towards the bulkhead, does that have to go through a review?
I don't know, I wasn't here when all of this was formulated, the original projects were formulated, so I don't know what level of environmental record you have. I also don't know if the new scope of, I know that the bulkheads were looked at because we have a bulkhead project. So they were evaluated. To what extent and what the new scope of work looks like as relation to the old scope of work. Again, if it expands, if the bulkheads are being expanded more than 20%, then it's probably going to have to go through the full EHP. If they are just replacing in kind, then that's probably a less time through the system.
Wow.
Can we start with commissioners, just, the very first slide said Panama City goals. And I really want to frame that with where we're trying to get just in general with projects. And for me, I don't want to see a dime go to, any more money go to Martin Theater. In fact, I'm going to vote no on any change orders that we get from now on, just saying that. So the idea that we inject more cash for change orders into that project to me is off the table for my vote. And then the perception of us taking more money off the marina looks bad to the public. Oh, you're taking more money from the marina. It makes sense financially when you look at it like, oh, we're going to lower the debt in St. Andrews. But what we're not calculating is how we're in debt to our potential partners on our downtown marina. So we're looking at like long-term debt, but we're not looking at like, oh, the partner we have that comes in, we now are indebted to them for putting the railings up and infrastructure and sidewalks and all those things. That's not calculated on here. I'd love to know those costs before we kind of brush those away. Are we not able to keep any of this, like we can't just keep the 9 million on the marina at all? That's not even an option.
Say that one more time.
To keep the money, this is a marina project. Now that portion of it's, help me understand how.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go back as standard lane project with 2202 and rebuild the marina according to the scope of work that was agreed upon. And if it costs more than 22, you would also get the $1.7 million of HMP, making it around 24 million. And yeah, if you had overages and you were stayed inside your scope of work, then you could potentially have $30 million towards that project.
Yeah,
but that
leaves
would.
a gap with Martin Theater.
Correct.
And still the long-term debt on the same.
Correct.
And so when we're kind of looking at debt in general, there's this emotional like, well, debt on this but debt is debt, correct, Ms. Smith? Like no matter what project it's on, it's debt.
Well, not exactly.
Okay, give me an explanation.
So enterprise debt would be funded by user charges, right? Only the users of that service would be the ones paying the debt. So the users of the marina would pay the marina debt. The utility users pay utility debt. General fund debt is paid by all your taxpayers.
So Jan, let me ask
You
this question.
transferred the debt from the marina to the general fund, which is the Martin Theater, then you're transferring debt from user charges to your general taxpayer population.
In an ideal world, that is correct. I agree with your statement, but the previous downtown marina had a bulkhead project. It was a significant amount. Was that all paid by the users of the Martin, or of the downtown
It's
marina?
being paid by the marina, yes.
Has that always been the case?
Oh, I haven't been here always.
Randy?
Yeah, we've been transferring because the whole loan.
You've been transferring from where?
The Marina Fund to pay back the general fund for that. That loan was actually secured with the merchant fee, so it was a general government debt.
So the people that are indebted to is not just the people that use the marina.
Correct, but that project was more than just enterprise. It was also general. It was a general fund project as well with the park and.
Can our current marina fund afford to pay the downtown marina bulkhead and the $12.9 million from the St. Andrews Marina bulkhead?
No, not
Couldn't we
with the
not?
operations we have today.
And that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. There's still going to be, when we get to the budgetary process in this, there's still going to be some general fund allocation that's going to have to pay this because that's almost $30 million worth of
I
debt.
can tell you the marina fund is not close to financial distress as the general fund is. I can tell you that for a fact, if that helps.
And so, just please clarify, there was 22 million originally assigned to our marina. We got 9 more added. We can't just.
There was 13.
13.
13, and now,
We have to then pull back the 13. We can't just keep the 9 on the marina.
no, you can't separate the funds.
It's all
We said
together.
please. We tried saying please. to-
Yeah.
Can you go back and ask again?
So
Okay.
I liked your method and approach. I think we should just start, what do we want to accomplish? I mean, I feel pretty clear that I don't want any more money to go to the Martin Theater. I think we've committed what needs to be committed. We don't need to see more go to there. Ideally, I would like to see less debt, but I definitely think we should not entertain solutions that create more debt. So as long as we're not adding to the debt, I can pretty much support any changes from whatever we need to do in project pieces. Obviously, I want to see the St. Andrews Marina bulkheads and project and slips finished and funded, and I also want to see the same for the downtown marina as well. So how we problem solve for that doesn't really matter, just no more debt than what we've already committed to, and preferably, and definitely no more money to the Martin.
So on the Martin, the best we can do on the path is 3.5 million give back? Is that right? If we,
That would be the worst case scenario, is that you stayed at 32 million, you obligated the 2202, the PC Marina, and the actual Martin Theater project to give you 35 million, cover your 32, but you would end up giving back 3.5.
Which option was that?
That's 1 and 2.
Can you show me at least, can you bring that slide up?
Which
It's
one
gonna
was it?
be-
Josh, I think that meets what you were talking about. And that's the only downside to me, because I believe, I'm like you.
Yeah.
Let me know which one, Mr. Mayor.
That one.
1 and 2.
So, 1, yeah, that's 1.
See that?
And so the top part is the same. The only difference in option 1 and 2 is that 1 does not utilize any HMP because it is a non-marina project. And option 2 potentially uses the $117,000 of HMP if you do a marina project that aligns with the scope. And here I have that. I found it. Well, I had it. Yeah, I went back and reread it for the whole thing. Okay, so the HMP related to 2295, which is your St. Andrews. So it would be this 117,000. It is floating docks, piers, including fuel operations, decking, railing, lights, storage shed, marina building, maintenance building, boat ramps, and enclosed ice machine. So anything that you do at the marina that would be related to any of those type of things have scope elements in it. So these elements are in the scope. These aren't exact things, so I don't, the maintenance stuff and the decking and the railing and the fuels, that's probably conduit, stuff like that. The marina building is probably increase of thickness of your roofing and siding. I don't know what kind of building it was, but I'm assuming it was probably metal to some degree.
So Olivia, could I ask a question? Like, so I think you've heard at least from 2 and maybe 3 that we don't really like any of these options that increase the Martin Theater, but we also don't like the option of leaving the downtown marina with not receiving anything from those proceeds. Could we give you guys the opportunity for us to give feedback and then you guys figure out a 4th option?
So, yeah, I mean, so
So-
really you can do, I mean, we can discuss it here. I mean, you can keep the 13 million at Martin Theater, and then you have 22 million to take somewhere else, and you have 5 million to take somewhere else, and you have 7 million to take somewhere else. So, or I'm sorry, 4. If you combined the 2295 and the 1971, you'd have $5 million. So potentially you could have $5 million going to a project, $22 million going to a project, and 13 million at this at the Martin Theater. Now you've shorted the Martin Theater significantly, like close to $18 million. Alternatively, you can leave 22, you can put 22 million towards the Martin Theater, and then you have 13 million and 5 million to do something with. But you've shorted the Martin Theater by $9.5 million. There's a lot of options to do it. We were just told to minimize debt, and so that's why this is the three options that were selected.
Can we take the 5 million down here and put it to the downtown marina and keep the 35 at the Martin under this option?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it says marina, so it doesn't matter which marina you use it at.
I think what I would love to hear is what everybody's objectives are. Because
Right.
I've had plenty of conversations with Olivia and staff at this point, but I've not had any conversations with the panel and the group. So I think,
Mayor, if I could interject, just as you're thinking about your objective, on the, a lot of these options deal with utilizing FEMA funds over on the bulkhead at St. Andrews. We have William Harrison and Cooper and some others from SAMP, St. Andrews Marina Partnership. Right now, there's a contract where it is cost plus for them to build the bulkhead. That doesn't mean that we should not entertain that option. I'm just saying they are a part of the whole discussion when it comes to utilizing some of the money on the bulkhead project in St. Andrews. Also, we have not negotiated any agreement on the downtown marina, but they're also here interested in how that would shake out. So that's my only point. It's just that there would be another party to have a discussion with.
so let me ask this, if we chose to do anything at the St. Andrews Marina, does that mean that we'd have to go back to say, hey, we need to amend our contract, or is it at our option whether or not we have them build it cost plus or not?
Would have to go back. All this has been very fluid and all. I know that they were planning on building it with cost plus, so we'd have to just go back and have a discussion with them and get there. But I just want.
But for me, on the
If we
St.
did on the
Andrews Marina,
bulkhead, though, all we're doing is lowering the debt. Why would we have to change the contract?
Because they
Well, you-
weren't
you-
procured.
'cause
you have to bid
properly
it.
Procured.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
you have to bid it out, and
Gotcha.
I know that the Gormans are part of the ownership
Right.
team, so.
Another,
keep in
one more
mind-
thing to consider, we've already been kind of pre-approved by the bank for the loan on the marina. I don't know if we could get money for the Martin Theater because supposedly we had the money
Yeah.
to build it, so.
Whoops.
I don't know how that would work. It's just something else.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, there's actually one other question that is percolating out here as now, and I'm going to ask it. I know it was determined by the prior commission, but do we continue to proceed with the full build-out of the Martin Theater complex, including the theater,
Yes.
including the Ritz, and including the Tennessee House?
Yes.
Because we do have some more pending change orders that are on the horizon, and these are critical components of this project. And so a remodel of this magnitude, we did not approve this project initially like we did with all of our other projects over the last 3 years with a level of contingency. So each change order comes back. And so, I know there's some strong feelings on that, but that does have the potential to stall that project. I just
So
want to.
if three of us choose not to approve any more change orders, what do you guys do?
Yeah.
Because we only approved a contract for what we approved
Yeah.
for.
I would say there's potential for the project to stall and I would assume some potential litigation.
It's like building half a football field.
Yeah.
I mean,
So what now?
It's like building half a football field.
I would
So you're
agree.
saying there's obligations above the amount that we paid, that we approved?
Obligations,
Yeah, so when we approve a $32 million project,
Yeah, change order typically is you go do the work and then you're not getting the money. It would be like it's a pre-approval
Yeah.
to doing more work.
well, as you know, some of the value engineering, the complexities of this project. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, it's kind of uncharted territory. Yeah, change orders are subject to both the construction management team, or what DAG's construction team, and the city. So obviously, if they weren't approved, if it's already done for work complete and the contractor's at risk, I don't know where that puts us legally. I'm gonna have to defer to the city attorney.
there should be nobody doing work that this
So,
commission hasn't
I'm
approved.
saying if.
Oh, that I agree with.
I agree as well.
So let's make that very
yeah.
clear.
But as far as like what happens if they propose like a $200,000 or $800,000, pick your number.
I would
change
say
order.
that's for you guys to go back and try to figure out how to figure it out. That's my take on it. Now,
Yeah.
the rest of the board may think differently, but, I think that's where we're approaching this point of, hey, we've approved this much. We don't want to continue to escalate.
Yeah.
So, or at least that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I just know, to be fair to the contract, and again, I'm saying this like very generically, like, I mean, we knew there were going to be surprises going into a 90-year-old building as they tore into it, as they tore into the Ritz, which is the old downtown building. So, you know, I don't think any of the change orders are necessarily, you know, new things that we're adding to it. It's a lot of them are surprises or things that weren't done on the front end, which we've experienced with all of our projects.
Jonathan, I have a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of respect for you.
Yes, sir.
If you guys are anticipating change orders when we approve a contract and that there's potential for unexpected, that should be an our agenda item. And it should say, this is the amount that we are approving now, but we do expect more. That should at least be clear off the very beginning. Because when I approve a contract, and I think probably everybody on this board feels that, we're approving a contract for a specific amount. And so if there's already something that we're expecting that's more than that, that is not, that should be clearly notated to us.
I would be interested in, I mean, I don't know how we get to the point of seeing if the Martin could be pulled back a little bit. If what's the DIB building, I don't know if there's the
Ritz?
The Ritz, yeah.
yeah, if there was a way we could do that as a phase 2 and seal it up and move money, keep it on the marina, I'd be interested in that.
Have y'all been inside there?
It's gutted.
Yeah, I mean,
There's nothing there.
right, but to do what you're talking about, that's a train wreck. I mean, work harder to meet the number of 32 million rather than stop. Yeah, I mean,
I agree with that.
Here's the headline coming out of this. Panama City says they're going to stop the Martin Theater. That is not happening, folks. Don't print that. Don't say that. But that's what's coming out of this. And the Martin Theater, well, people are mad about it. Every small town has one. Is it going to be worth 34 million? I don't know, but it's going to bring life to downtown. It's going to help other businesses. To stop that right now, or to do it in phases, we're going to have to pay for the vacant building registry. We're going to have to pay vacant building registry if that were to pass.
Now you're talking.
No, because that's not going to pass.
I don't think anybody's wanting to stop.
Okay, that's a
That is not the
concern.
intention in the conversation.
Okay.
I think the point is, there's still things to be finished in the contract, and so those should be on the table of what we don't. And that could be anything from like, maybe there's not brass fixtures, maybe that, I don't know what that looks like.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, no wallpaper, maybe it's paint rather than that. I don't know what it looks like.
Delicate tile stuff.
But that's the point in communicating now is like, hey, before you surprise us in 2 meetings from now with some change order, and definitely before a contractor goes and executes work, that conversation is expected.
I agree.
I just wanted to bring it up because I know those are in the hopper, and I know I've mentioned that, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. So,
Yeah, the hopper should include reevaluation of value engineering.
agree 100%.
So
I think we had a couple more slides, didn't we?
Yeah,
Ms. Smith?
just a couple. I don't know that any of them are super, well, there's one that is pretty important that I would.
I don't think we
Yeah,
quite
we're
made it
on
to
the
this
H&P.
one.
This is where we were at. That's the scope for your H&P related to 2295. If you utilize the okay, here's the other catch with the H&P that I think everybody needs to be aware of. H&P is covered for the rebuild of 2295. If you do something else, even if you have some of these elements in it, like decking or railing or piers, you have to expand that H&P scope to the entire project. You can't just say, we're going to do H&P up to $117,422, and then we're going to stop making this project resilient. You have to finish it. And so if the project to upgrade all of the decking, all of the railing, all of the piers costs you $500,000, you will only be reimbursed from FEMA for the $117,000 portion. Now, could it come out of the regular project as the overall scope? Absolutely. But as far as additional funds for H&P, you can't go back and say, we've expanded the H&P, that comes out of pocket. Those particular scope elements.
So Olivia, what I hear you saying is like, if we choose, whether it goes on downtown marina or whether it goes on St. Andrews Bulkhead, as long as it's a marina project, we can probably utilize those funds.
Potentially, but the sleeping for money purposes, I'm going to use windows because it's much easier for an analogy. If you have a building and you have 20 windows in it, and you get H&P on that facility to replace 20 windows with hurricane thick windows, but you improve that project, change the scope of work, and you're going to build another building across town, and that building has 40 windows. you have to fix, and you say, I want to use the HMP funds for the 20 windows. You don't get 40 windows, you get 20 windows, but you still have to buy 40 hurricane windows. You have to apply the HMP to the entire project, and you do not get additional money specifically for HMP.
So how would you problem solve for that at the marina?
It would just be, I would include it as, I would look at it, if I was using the HMP, I would look at it as
Some you're already
staying
doing.
underneath the total project value. So under the 5.1.
Yeah.
You just look to do something you're already doing.
Well, like
In potential,
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
potential.
Could you do like infrastructure and boat ramp downtown? Could you?
Yeah.
Or bulkhead in St. Andrews? I'm just trying to come up with where you place it.
I think the point what we're probably hearing here is, as long as we use it on a marina, we have the potential of accessing more funding.
I mean, it's not a significant amount of money, like and so here's the bottom line
it's
there, the total
$200,000.
HMP for both 2202 and 2295, for both of your marina projects, those are the only projects with HMP. You would, if, worst case scenario, you didn't utilize HMP, we put them on non-marina projects, you're giving back $1.8 million. And that's not even, that's not your gross net, that's just your,
So how much are we accessing by putting it on a marina?
so none of the calculations include this. So if we were to use all of the HMP, if we were able to use it, which we're not, because in none of these scenarios currently have the 2202 going towards a marina, and that's the significant HMP,
Okay.
right? That's the 1.7. So if you were to utilize everything, let's say you use 2202 and 2295 on marinas, you would have about $42 million. You have not seen $42 million on any of these things because we have not utilized the 1.7 at all, because it's every option to date. I'm not saying it's the only options, but the only options to date have the PC Marina money going towards the Martin Theater, and therefore HMP is not eligible.
So here's what I take out of our conversation. No more money at Martin and spend money on marinas. Is that, is that a consensus? And
Yeah, I
then
think
come back with a better.
Janice,
Yeah.
Janice, do you want to weigh in? Janice?
Yes.
Listen. Yeah. You're good.
Insofar as a non-marina project? Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Yes, if you use the 22 million, if you use 2202, I'm sorry, God, all the 22s. 2202 would be 24 with HMP funds. So if you wanted to utilize the maximum amount of your HMP, that would be attached to the 2202 project. 2295 is $117,000. I would not be so tied to that amount of money. I don't think I think you will end up spending more on those elements than $117,000. That's what I'm trying to say. You have to, if you say we're going to execute HMP, you have to execute it across the entire project.
So most of that.
So HMP will probably end up costing you $200,000, $300,000 to fulfill the scope of work at the new location. if you wanted to keep 2202 at the Panama City Downtown Marina, then yes, ma'am, you would have $24 million plus potential overages if you replaced it in kind. So if you go, because it's currently a standard lane project, so you have 22 million plus 1.7 in HMP, so that gives you about $24 million. If you go back in kind, that HMP scope is geared towards back in kind. So that would cover your HMP for going back in kind. And then any overage you had to replace it as it was on October 9th, 2018. Yep. Then as long as that scope was fulfilled, if it ended up costing you 25, 26, 27 million, we could go back to FEMA and say, cost increased, we fulfilled the scope of work, it cost us 30 million instead of 24 million. But that absolutely depletes your Martin Theater budget completely, because now you only have a $13 million project and $5 million. So you have $18 million going towards the Martin Theater.
Can I make just a quick comment? I think there's a lot of information that's kind of going back and forth, and I'm starting to get lost in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I think I want to go back to the clarity point of like where we want to get. I think that next time this comes back to us is that we should know how the downtown marina is being funded, how those improvements are being made, funding is in place, and whatever this final proposal is, how the Martin is funded, how it's the funding in place for that, and how the St. Andrews Marina is funded and how the replacement of that. I think if we can accomplish that and we can see that as a whole, this is a whole lot less confusing than trying to move stuff around to do it. And so my objective is 2 marinas rebuilt, access to our citizens, and the Martin Theater done with no more debt than what we're committing to today. So that would be ideal. So.
Yep.
I think so, James. Yes.
On this
Thank you.
past one right now, we took that 5 million and either did uplink or bulkhead and kept everything else the same. How much money are we giving back?
That is
We're
optional.
set up right now,
So-
all the money that's going to the Martin, we've got this extra $5 million.
If you are adamant about keeping the Martin Theater budget at 32 million, you would give back $3.5 million.
And
But if we went over that 3.5 million, say we went over 2 million, can we ask for that 2 million? No.
No, because we've changed the scope of work.
Okay.
But you do have an existing $2 million local cost share on that project, on the Martin Theater. So of that 32.9, 2 million and change is still local money.
which we do need to allocate that from insurance proceeds if we intend to not have any debt on that.
Correct, that is not.
Wilson, you got something? I've got lots of notes, everybody, get ready.
Okay, there you go. Roll.
Okay, so one of the problems that I have is when we first made this decision, we had a very contentious FEMA with a contentious administration, specifically for this area. And we chose to move money off of the marinas and to put them onto the Martin, in part to protect the money that we were receiving. Now, I agree with you all. I don't think that we should say we're going to do this thing and then halfway through it, change and not do it. So I do believe that we need to continue on with the Martin, and I do believe that when we say the Martin, we're talking about the Ritz, the Tennessee House, and the Martin. Because without the Tennessee House and without the Ritz, the Martin just hangs in the middle. We have to have all 3 components in order for that to be a zero-sum game to the city, or potentially even to make money there. We have a partner in discussions with the Panama City Marina. And so any decisions, and I know we're not coming to a decision tonight, but any decisions that are made are premature because we don't have a contract signed with that partner. On top of that, if we decide that we want to put money towards the Panama City Marina, which I am all in favor of, however, any money we use with FEMA money will kick off a bid process, will it not?
Potentially.
Yeah. So what that means is we could come to a contract agreement with our a partner and then turn around and mess it up by moving money to the Panama City Marina, which is what I want to do, but I also don't want to mess up a contract with a partner. So it is a very tough decision. It is something that we're definitely going to have to talk to the potential partners about, and something we're going to have to continue to talk to staff about. But I think that this decision doesn't need to be made until we are either have a contract or we're at an impasse with CMP. That's how I feel about it right now. So, because if we have a contract with CMP, well then there's no decision, or that may impact our decision as to whether or not we are going to put money on the Panama City Marina
And
or
how
the
much.
St. Andrews Marina.
Yep.
And how much.
So if you were, I'm sorry, I was not familiar with Panama City prior to the disaster, so I'm not 100% sure what I'm talking about. But I think that you guys had a marina store and some other things down there. So if you were to go back in the same footprint of the marina store and use the $5 million for that, you probably are not looking at a huge lift on your EHP because it's going back in the same footprint, same area, or up to 20% bigger. You can go higher, you just can't impact the ground. It's 3 inches into the ground is considered impact.
So putting back the sidewalks that were there, putting back the railing there.
So have one more
Expanding the
point.
boat ramp.
Expanding the boat ramp potentially
Say
could,
expanding,
That's a problem.
20%.
20%.
19.
19%.
We're good.
So the last point I have is that if we have a partner build this for us, then that doesn't trigger EHP.
Correct.
And if we use any of this money, then there is potential, some maybe not, depending on how we use it. So
You will be impacted. It's just a matter of how impacted.
So we're at 7 years, almost 8. And what I really don't want to do is have to explain to the public that by moving FEMA money to the marina, will slow it down.
There you go.
That's a really, really tough thing to explain to somebody who hasn't been tracking all of this, and the majority of the public isn't tracking all of this, right? That's our job. It's our job.
There will be a period where they're getting permits over there.
Yes. but
So in that
50
time
slips
frame,
are already permitted.
well, that's true, but maybe that if there was an EHP process, that runs concurrently.
And if you have
government agencies.
contractors, that some contractors do provide basic environmental assessments when they do projects. We can certainly submit that. You will have to, if you exceed the original footprint, or if you go back in pristine ground, you will have to notify all the state agencies. You will have to notify the tribes. You will have to notify all the federal agencies. And they all have an opportunity to speak at your table because you're using their funds. That being said, if you go back in kind, some of those things are eliminated. Some of the long processy things are
So what I
eliminated.
want to tell my colleagues here is that where I sit, I want a marina as fast as possible.
Yes, sir.
That's
And
what I'm saying.
if we use that 5 million to go to the bulkhead, we're still doing the EHP potentially, right?
Depending on the EHP review that was done when the project was originally written. When 1971 was written, EHP is always, anytime a project is written and obligated, you can absolutely 100% guarantee that it went through the environmental historical preservation queue, is what they call it. And so there was environmental done on the bulkheads at St. Andrews. We have a project. So we know that there was some kind of environmental assessment done there. If you change the scope of what was assessed and you move the bulkheads out 20 feet, or you bring them in, or you lengthen them, that could potentially trigger an additional environmental assessment. If you go back in kind and they have already evaluated all of that, then potentially we don't have a long haul of environmental concern.
Josh, you
I-
got that?
We have a contract.
Well, yeah, but do we have an
I
environmental?
think probably the biggest thing at St. Andrews is the contract and how that's executed. I mean, it's a bulkhead. I mean, I can't say there would be some type of historic significance of that, but I can't say.
You don't want it to stop.
It's not going to be the historical preservation part for your bulkheads. It's going to be environmental.
So I would just say let's state our objectives, have them go back. I kind of agree from Brian's perspective. We really can't make a decision until we kind of have everything laid out, because I want whatever decision I make next to reflect downtown Marina is getting rebuilt, St. Andrews Marina is getting rebuilt, and Martin Theater is getting complete. And so like that's, otherwise, it's going to create confusion trying to go through the scenarios that got us to there. As long as that's accomplished and we're not adding more debt to do that, great.
And if those were in consensus with all of us with the least amount of debt, payback, we know we're going to have to pay something back, right?
Potentially just your H&P.
Okay. If we can get to that, that'd be great.
Also, if you would like for the reconsideration, if you come up with costs of what that would look like, how much you guys want to spend, because like I said, in this long-term debt, we've only considered the Martin Theater at 32 million, and we've only considered the bulkheads. So if you are assuming.
Big boss is out. The big boss is here now.
Sorry. If you consider, I have trust issues. No, I'm just kidding. If you consider that you think that your portion, or you talk to the downtown Marina partner and they say, look, we're willing to put forward $20 million towards fixing the marina, but we're not going to do the store. And so you anticipate the store costing $4 million. We can add that in as a long-term debt factor. So it gives you a more whole picture. I just don't know what that looks like from your perspective. I mean, I'm just here to do what you guys want. I have absolutely no dog in the fight. So the more information I get, the better information I can give back. So like the long-term debt is only being considered as it is. If you want to add other projects or other ideas to that, like in a perfect world, we'd have all three elements completed. All three elements aren't in here, right? We've only got bulkheads at St. Andrews and the Martin Theater. If you have a cost idea at the downtown marina, we can certainly add that in and factor out what the debt looks like with that included. But I don't have that number, so you'll have to provide that.
Okay.
Great job, by the way, the presentation.
Yes.
You know your stuff.
That was,
Really knows it.
yeah.
One more thing.
don't know how you don't
Can
have
you
a
go
headache
to
right now.
the second to the last page?
Yeah. Donald, just switch it back to PowerPoint, please, sir.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Bye, Miss Lucas.
I want to, I'm Gary, Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Gary Yates with Integrity Group. And we'd love to end with really great news, but we're not. And I'm sitting here for the last hour or so and listening to the complexity and the non-common sensibility of FEMA. And personally, I was hoping by now that people looking at fraud, waste, and abuse in Washington would really have streamlined this process, and maybe that will happen. I hope that will happen. But we just want to share with you, there's some things that are sort of counter to that are happening in the Homeland Security Department. The Secretary has ordered any new expenditures from DHS, which includes FEMA, anything over $100,000 has to go to her desk for approval. So anything that has to be, in this case, submitted a scope of work that requires a new obligation, that's like a new expenditure. And that's going to be very problematic. Even beyond that, even the projects that have been obligated to the state of Florida.
For 7 years.
For 7 years, in the case of Panama City, before any money can be drawn down from the state of Florida, it has to go back to FEMA for review and approval. And we are hearing from other clients and other people around the state and other states, that is a very, very slow process. So we have drafted a letter for Congressman Dunn, and hopefully he could get every member of the congressional delegation in Florida to sign off on it, just expressing concern about what will probably add an enormous amount of time to get this money actually, provided
In your pocket.
to Panama City. So I just want to mention that to you. It's beyond anyone's control, anyone here, certainly, even the state of Florida. It's a federal Homeland Security issue. And we've seen many other states have written letters Texas, most recently, the flooding there, those kind of issues. So we have provided the congressman a draft, and we didn't speak about Panama City, we just talked about the entire state of Florida. There's a whole bunch of applicants that are in the same, sub-applicants that are in the same position that the city is in. Anything to add?
Yeah, just the worst case scenario, we've seen payments be delayed up to 97 days and just already obligated, already approved, everything's fine, no overages, no discrepancies, just submit for reimbursement and then 97 days to pay out. So that's another, hopefully this won't last very long. Hopefully they will figure out that this is more cumbersome than helpful. But currently that is the situation that we are under. And our job is to provide you with all of the information that we can. And this is not the best information, but it is information and you should know it.
Mayor, Commissioner Hughes, maybe you're talking about the media coverage of this meeting. That might be a good one, is the delays from the federal government on things that have been obligated for over 7 years. And that's
important.
as a taxpayer, people should be concerned.
The 5 million, anywhere it's put, that's considered a new expenditure?
No. So in this case, the only thing that would be held up based on obligation would be 2202, because it's so
Which is the original marina project.
that's the original marina project that is increasing the obligation, right? So we're changing the obligated amount. It will probably have to go back to congressional session. It has to sit in the congressional review for 30 days, no matter what. So once we can get it to the congressional review state, then it will obviously go, as it stands today, it would go to NOM's desk and be signed off on for the increase.
To Mr. Granger's point, then wherever that project is, has the longest lead time currently,
The 2202?
which right now is assigned to the Martin Theater.
Correct, yes. But right now you have Martin Theater there with $13 million. From my understanding, you haven't expended $13 million yet, have you?
No, we haven't. I think that's an excellent point that Ms. Waldron flagged for me. So I think we need to address this because, again, my goal, commissioners, is to make sure y'all have all the information as y'all process this. And while we're not making a decision tonight, we want y'all to have time to figure this out, but we're not able to draw down on reimbursements on the Martin Theater until we finalize this decision. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's about $6.5 million.
Yes, ma'am, that we've spent. Yes, ma'am.
So if you leave 2221 on the Martin Theater, then you have access to $13 million virtually as soon as we can submit the invoice.
You need to get closer to the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So if you leave 2221, the Martin Theater project on the Martin Theater, we could potentially, I know we're not agreeing to anything, but let's say we said, we're leaving it there. We're not going to move, under no circumstance are we going to move 2221. We could start drawing down on that $13 million expeditiously.
I'm not ready to make any decisions.
I'm not suggesting that you are. I'm just saying that that money is, the only reason we haven't drawn down on it is because once we do, we're locked.
So it sounds like we need to figure out how we're building the downtown marina, how it's funding and how that's getting done. And get the St. Andrews Marina project going and, figure out how we stay in budget at the Martin Theater and don't increase it.
I think it's also important to say that FEMA did say that if we removed the HMP from 2202, the $1.7 million, if we removed that, that it would probably go faster because when you have multiple scopes, so you have the original project scope and then you have the HMP scope, they have to go concurrently and then they're added back together. So you would basically knock off one whole process if you didn't have to review the HMP on 2202. That being said, currently, as it sits right now today with the options that we've provided you, there's no possibility that you could use the HMP because it's going to Martin Theater right now. If you decide to go back and take that $24 million and go down back to the marina or put that towards the marina, then that may not be an avenue that you want to explore. So there is a way to expedite the 2202, but that does lock you into losing that $1.7 million.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just real quick, Commissioner Street, can you clarify when you said get the seniors marina project going? Do you mean the bulkheads?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, I just want to, yeah.
By the end of this, we should have, this is how this is being funded, this is how this is being funded, and they're all getting funded, and they're all getting built. Like, that's.
I just wanted to clarify you were specifically talking about the bulkheads. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I was talking about the bulk.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, let me just add, we realize you are not making decisions. This is a great discussion. I think it's been very good for you folks to ultimately decide. But the communication on the policy at Homeland Security, it doesn't matter what you decide. You know, you don't have to wait and tell them specifically what you want to do. We would encourage you to voice the concern about why there's going to be enormous delays with the $100,000 limit that the secretary has to sign off on, and then the fact that obligated funds have to be looked at again.
It will potentially affect all of your drawdowns from MLK too.
Do we need to make a motion to send a letter, or is that something that can be done without that?
I think if we're just sending a letter communicating kind of the collective will that y'all have already expressed in your support of past projects, I don't think an additional motion would be needed.
Yeah, how about this? How about if y'all get with staff, y'all draft a letter, and then if you feel like we need to sign it, bring it to the next meeting.
Sounds good.
We'll be glad to provide you the draft letter that we provided to Congressman Dunn, and it might be just a simple, Mr. Hayes, it's just a call to tell them that you definitely, want, the city, Panama City would love to have this letter transmitted.
So is it possible to have the discussions with everybody that needs to and come back in 2 meetings, 1 meeting, and how does that, what's the timeline there?
I mean, I think we'll see. Our goal was September 9th, but it might have to be September 23rd.
Okay.
I don't know if it matters, but I will not be here on the 9th.
It's okay.
I think that.
Okay.
They won't be ready.
That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman, 12A.
How could we forget? We have, I'd like to talk about that. We have an executive session. It is set up in the room through that door. We'll have present in that executive session, we'll have the Ms. McSwain, and I will be there representing the city attorney. Also, we'll have an attorney from Coppins Monroe. He was assigned by FIMIT, our insurance carrier, to represent the city. We'll have in that session the city commissioners as well, and mayor, as well as is the city manager. Yeah, the city manager also. We will be talking about the Bambi's litigation, and no action will be taken at or during the executive session. We are asking for advice concerning litigation strategy. At the conclusion, we estimate it will be 30 minutes in length. We'll come back. If there is some action you'd like to take, we would take it back. We would take it at this meeting when we reconvene. We're just pausing this meeting. If there is no action, we would come back and adjourn the meeting. So at this time, it would be appropriate to take a recess and go, and then come back.
I'm going to try and push you.
Yeah, pushing me.
Thank you, guys.
Bang to go.
Oh, Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Wait.
You have to.
we have to bring us back in.
Bring us back in.
Oh, I got gobbles back. Okay, we're back.
Motion
Hold on,
to,
wait.
I'd just like to report that the executive session is now concluded and the commission has reconvened. If there's any action the commission would like to take, it could take it at this time. Otherwise, it would be appropriate for a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay.